Welcome to the FAQ Shack, where we dive deep into your most curious questions about history, science, and, well, pretty much everything in between. Today, we're tackling an accidental discovery that literally redrew the map of the world.
You know, we absolutely love hearing from you, and today's whole explainer actually comes from a question one of you sent in. So hey, if you've got a burning question you want us to tackle, make sure you drop it in the comments below.
So Jenna from Austin, Texas, wrote in with this fantastic question. She asks, I've seen guns in movies and history books my whole life, but where did it all start? What's the real story of gunpowder? That is such a great question, Jenna, because it gets right to the heart of how a single invention can completely change the course of human history.
So to get to the bottom of Jenna's question, we have to travel back in time, like over 1,000 years. And this story has a twist you probably won't see coming. It starts not with a bang, but with a quest for eternal life.
Okay, first stop, the accidental elixir. Our story begins not in a battlefield or a barracks, but in the labs of alchemists in Song Dynasty, China.
So picture this. These alchemists are trying to mix up a potion for immortality, and instead they stumble upon this mix of three pretty common things: saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. They called it huio, which literally means fire drug. And yep, that's what we now call gunpowder.
Now this first mixture, it was more of a whoosh than a bang. Super flammable, but not really explosive yet. But the military? Oh, they saw the potential immediately. And by 1044 AD, the first official written-down recipe shows up in this military manual, the Wujing Zongyao.
And just to give you a little preview of where this is all headed, this is what that fire drug eventually led to. On your screen, you can see this incredible illustration of a 16th century Ottoman army just leveling a Hungarian fort with these massive cannons. But how in the world did we get from a simple flammable powder to that?
Well, to get there, we gotta start here, with the early stuff. The first weapons weren't anything like the guns you're thinking of. We're talking about things like fire arrows, basically arrows with little gunpowder packets on them, or thunderclap bombs, which were early grenades, and my personal favorite, fire lances. These were just bamboo tubes that shot out flames and shrapnel. I mean, honestly, a lot of it was just about psychology. The loud noises, the smoke, it was terrifying stuff.
Okay, next up, the idea catches fire. Let's see how this thing spread across the Silk Road. So this idea didn't stay put in China for long. Over the next few centuries, it just exploded across the world. You can see the timeline here. It starts in China around the 900s. By the 1200s, it's heading west, thanks to two major things: the Silk Road trade routes and, believe it or not, the Mongol invasions. Then boom, it hits Europe and the Middle East in the 12 and 1300s.
And you know what's really cool? We can actually trace its journey just by looking at the language people used. Early texts in the Middle East are full of clues. In Arabic, for example, saltpeter was called Chinese snow. Rockets? They were Chinese arrows. The names themselves are like a breadcrumb trail leading right back to China.
And what's on screen now really shows how the tech didn't just spread, it evolved. On the left, you've got one of those early Chinese fire lances. It's basically a proto-gun. Then, on the right, you see an Arabic illustration of a soldier with something called a midfa. It's an early hand cannon. You can literally see the idea being adapted and improved as it moved from place to place.
All right, so this brings us to Europe's technological forge. Because what happened when gunpowder got to Europe is, well, it's a real game changer. It wasn't just another new tool. It kicked off a massive technological arms race.
So why Europe? Why did things accelerate so much there? This chart on the screen lays it out perfectly. In Ming China, you had this huge unified empire. Their biggest problem was nomadic horsemen from the north. You don't really need giant cannons to fight guys on horseback. But Europe. Renaissance Europe was a total pressure cooker. It was a bunch of smaller, competing states, all about the same size, all trying to knock down each other's castles. That constant high-stakes warfare was the perfect environment to drive super-fast innovation in firearms.
And that pressure cooker effect led to the crazy fast evolution you see here. In just a couple hundred years, warfare goes from these simple hand cannons, I mean, they were literally just a tube on a stick, to the arquebus, which had the first real trigger, called a matchlock. And then you get the musket. Heavier, sure, but way more powerful. Powerful enough to punch right through a knight's armor. Game over for knights.
And that's the key takeaway right there. As cannons got better and better, those tall stone walls of medieval castles, they basically became giant targets.
The whole feudal system, the whole way of life built around those castles, was suddenly obsolete.
So what do? Well, you redesign everything. And this image is the solution. What you're looking at is a 17th century map of Palmanova in Italy. This is a perfect example of a star fort. See those weird angles? The walls are low and sloped to deflect cannonballs, not just block them. And those pointy bits, the bastions, let defenders create these overlapping fields of fire. It's an absolute death trap for anyone trying to attack. It's a fortress literally redesigned for the age of gunpowder.
Okay, Section 4, a world redrawn. Because this military revolution, born in Europe, absolutely did not stay in Europe. It went on to redraw the map of the entire planet.
Over in the Middle East and India, you had these massive, powerful states, the Ottomans, the Safavids, the Mughals, that used cannons and guns to just dominate their rivals and build huge empires. Historians have a great name for them, the Gunpowder Empires. Kind of says it all, right? Which brings us to the next, and maybe darker phase. This quote on the screen from 1898 by Hilaire Belloc perfectly captures the attitude. Whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun and they have not. The Maxim gun was an early machine gun. This massive technological gap between an industrialized Europe and the rest of the world, well, it became the engine of colonialism. But it wasn't always a one-way street, and this is so important. The image you're seeing now is of the Ethiopian army at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. They hadn't just sat back. They had armed themselves with modern European rifles and even some of those Maxim guns. And when an Italian army tried to invade, the Ethiopians used that very same technology to win a decisive victory. It's a powerful reminder that technology can also be a great equalizer.
All right, that brings us to our final segment, the listener mailbag, where we tackle one of your follow-up questions.
So, HistoryBuff88 posted a comment with a really deep question, one that historians still argue about. They ask, is technology the main driver of history then? I mean, that's the big one, right? Is it all just about the tech? So, let's wrap this all up. It started with Chinese alchemists looking for a way to live forever and ended up giving humanity this unprecedented power to destroy. I think the story of gunpowder shows us something really profound. Technology is, without a doubt, a powerful catalyst. It can change everything, but it's not the driver. It's us. It's human ambition, our competition, our cultures. That's what's really behind the wheel, steering the course of history. Thanks for joining us on the FAQ Shack.